Good morning, everyone. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and rare phenomenon unfolding right now in the Atlantic Ocean, one that could have a major impact on our weather in the coming months. We're tracking something that doesn't happen often: the Atlantic Niña. While most of us are familiar with El Niño and La Niña events in the Pacific, the Atlantic has its own version of this climate pattern, and it's making waves, literally and figuratively, right in our own backyard. Unlike the Pacific events, which tend to grab headlines and dominate global weather discussions, the Atlantic Niña is less well known, but can be just as influential. This event is a true game changer for the Atlantic hurricane season and for weather patterns across the Americas and even parts of Europe and Africa. So, what exactly is the Atlantic Niña, and why should we care about it? The Atlantic Niña is defined by a patch of unusually cold water in the tropical Atlantic, right in the region where hurricanes typically form and gain strength. This cooling can have a dramatic effect on the number and intensity of storms that develop. What's causing this chill? Strong easterly trade winds have been sweeping across the ocean, stirring up the water and pulling cooler water up from the depths. As a result, sea surface temperatures in this critical zone are now running 1 to 3 degrees Celsius below what's considered normal for this time of year, a significant drop that meteorologists are watching closely. This cooling didn't happen overnight. It's the result of weeks, even months, of shifting wind patterns and ocean currents working together. NOAA scientists first picked up on this trend back in August 2024, when they noticed the trade winds were strengthening and ocean temperatures were starting to dip. Since then, the cool patch has only grown, and the data has become even more compelling. The Atlantic Niña is actually the cool phase of a larger natural cycle called the Atlantic Meridional Mode, or AMM. This cycle alternates between warm and cool phases, each with its own set of impacts on weather, ocean currents, and even rainfall patterns across continents. It's rare to see such a strong and persistent cool phase in the Atlantic. Most years we experience the warm phase, known as the Atlantic Niña, which tends to fuel more hurricanes and more intense storms. Historically, when the Atlantic is in its warm phase, the number of storms can nearly double compared to years dominated by the cool phase. That's a huge difference, and it's why this year's Atlantic Niña is drawing so much attention from scientists and forecasters. Heading into the peak of hurricane season with an Atlantic Niña in place is a major curveball. It could mean fewer storms overall, but it also introduces new uncertainties about where and how storms might form. This natural climate pattern is already making the 2025 season 1 for the record books, with meteorologists scrambling to update their forecasts and communities along the Atlantic coast, keeping a close eye on developments. Meteorologists are watching closely, and so should we. The Atlantic Niña could affect not just hurricane numbers but also rainfall, drought, and even temperatures across large parts of the globe. As we move into the heart of hurricane season, let's keep an eye on the Atlantic Niña and see what it means for the months ahead. The story is just beginning, and its effects could be felt far and wide. The big question on everyone's mind: what does the Atlantic Niña mean for the 2025 hurricane season? With so much attention on the Atlantic every year, understanding these oceanic shifts is crucial for anyone living along the coast or tracking global weather patterns. In short, it points to a less active season than we've seen in recent years. But let's break down exactly why that is, and what it could mean for communities that are used to bracing for major storms each summer and fall. Hurricanes need warm ocean water, at least 26.5 degrees Celsius, to form and strengthen. When the water is warmer, it acts as fuel, giving storms the energy they need to grow into powerful hurricanes that can threaten coastlines and disrupt lives. Cooler water acts like a weak battery, making storm development much harder. When the Atlantic is cooler than average, it's like trying to start a car with a dying battery. Storms just can't get going in the same way. But that's not all. The Atlantic Niña also brings higher atmospheric pressure and drier air, both of which suppress storm formation. High-pressure systems act like a lid, preventing storms from rising and organizing, while dry air saps the moisture hurricanes need to thrive. Think of it as 3 strikes: cooler water, higher pressure, and drier air, all working against hurricanes. Each of these factors alone can slow down storm activity, but together, they create a powerful barrier that makes it very difficult for hurricanes to form or intensify. The main development region, stretching from the west coast of Africa to the Caribbean, is usually the nursery for our strongest storms. This is where many of the most memorable and destructive hurricanes are born, fueled by warm waters and favorable winds. This year, it's hostile territory for hurricanes. The combination of cooler water, dry air, and high pressure means that even if a storm tries to get started, it's likely to fizzle out before it can become a major threat. As a result, the number of storms is forecast to be below average, a big shift from the hyperactive seasons we've gotten used to. For emergency managers and coastal residents, this could mean fewer sleepless nights, but it's still important to stay prepared. Our accumulated cyclone energy, or ACE index, is way down, reflecting not just fewer storms but also weaker ones. The ACE index measures the total energy of all tropical storms and hurricanes, so a low number means less overall storm power and duration. A low ACE means less overall storm power and duration. This is good news for those hoping to avoid the devastation of a major hurricane, but it's also a reminder that even a quiet season can produce a dangerous storm if conditions briefly turn favorable. The Atlantic Niña is directly responsible for this quieter start. Its influence on ocean temperatures and atmospheric patterns is shaping the entire season, making it one of the most important climate signals to watch. The ocean simply isn't primed for explosive hurricane development this year. While that's a relief for many, it's a fascinating reminder of how interconnected our planet's systems are, and how a shift in the Atlantic can ripple across the globe. A below-average hurricane season sounds like good news, and for many, it brings a sense of relief. The thought of fewer storms on the horizon can make it tempting to relax and enjoy the calm. But don't let your guard down, even for a moment. Weather can change quickly, and it only takes one storm to turn a quiet season into a life-changing event. Fewer storms overall doesn't mean zero risk. Just one landfalling hurricane can make it a devastating year for any community. The impact of a single storm can be felt for months or even years after it passes. Remember, the forecast covers the entire Atlantic, not your specific town. A season with fewer storms can still bring a powerful hurricane to your doorstep, no matter where you live along the coast. Even a quiet season can bring a major storm to your doorstep. It's important to stay alert and not be lulled into a false sense of security. History is full of years with low storm counts but high impacts. Some of the most damaging hurricanes have struck during so-called quiet years, catching people off guard. That's why emergency managers urge you to prepare the same way every year, no matter the outlook. Have your hurricane plan, know your evacuation zone, and talk with your family about what to do if a storm threatens. Keep your emergency kit ready, stocked with essentials like water, food, flashlights, and important documents. Preparation is something you can control even when the weather isn't. Preparation is your best defense in any season. Simple steps like securing your home and knowing where to go can make all the difference. The risk of a landfalling hurricane is never zero until the season ends. Every week, stay informed and ready to act. Use this forecast as a reason for hope, not for complacency. Let it motivate you to stay prepared, not to let your guard down. Enjoy the relative quiet but stay vigilant. Talk to your neighbors, review your plans, and keep an eye on the forecast. Be ready to act if a storm heads your way. Quick action can save lives and protect your home. That's the smartest way to approach hurricane season. Stay prepared, stay safe, and never underestimate the power of nature. Let's break down the numbers behind the forecast. NOAA predicts around 17 named storms for 2025, but remember, average season numbers have risen over time. Of those, up to 5 could become major hurricanes, Category 3 or higher. Even in a suppressed season, dangerous storms can still develop if conditions line up. The ACE index is well below average so far, reflecting the quiet start and hostile environment in the main development region. Cold Atlantic Niña phases typically produce much less ACE than warm phases, but we're just entering the heart of hurricane season. August through early October are historically the busiest months. The forecast is based on the best science, but it's not a guarantee. The numbers give us a general idea, but the story of 2025 is still unfolding. There's still time for surprises. The Atlantic Niña's influence doesn't end with hurricane season. It sets the stage for winter too. Now, let's turn to the Pacific, where a weak La Niña is forecast to develop. Climate centers put the odds of La Niña emerging by autumn at about 40%. La Niña in the Pacific shapes the jet stream, bringing colder, wetter conditions to the northern U.S. and drier, warmer weather to the south. Expect more lake-effect snow in the Great Lakes and a soggy winter for the Pacific Northwest. Meanwhile, the southern states could see drought conditions worsen. It's a classic split cold and snowy up north, mild and dry down south. How does La Niña in the Pacific change our winter? Cooler Pacific waters shift tropical rainfall westward, strengthening trade winds and altering global air currents. This shift buckles the jet stream, letting Arctic air plunge south and creating a storm track across the northern U.S. The result: colder, snowier conditions for the Great Lakes and New England, and a higher risk of major winter storms. Meanwhile, high pressure builds over the southeast, keeping it warmer and drier. This can worsen drought in places like Texas and Florida. So, a cool Pacific sets off a chain reaction that shapes our winter weather coast to coast. There's another wild card for winter: the polar vortex. When strong, it keeps Arctic air locked up north, but if it weakens, frigid air can spill deep into the U.S. A quiet hurricane season may contribute to a weaker vortex, making sudden cold snaps more likely. A disrupted vortex combined with La Niña's wavy jet stream can deliver extreme, prolonged cold. These events can strain power grids and create dangerous conditions. The polar vortex is the wild card that can turn a cold winter into a memorably harsh one. Forecasters will watch for sudden stratospheric warming, an early warning of instability. Stay alert for updates as winter approaches. Forecasts are based on the best science available, but the climate system is always in motion. The Atlantic Niña could be short-lived. If trade winds weaken, warm water could quickly return, flipping the pattern. A rapid change could make the season much more active than expected. That's why we talk in probabilities, not certainties. The Pacific's ENSO-neutral state adds more uncertainty. Big storms can still happen even without strong El Niño or La Niña. Stay tuned to trusted sources like the National Hurricane Center for the latest updates. The forecast you hear today might change tomorrow. Staying informed is your best tool for safety. To sum up, the rare Atlantic Niña is cooling the tropical Atlantic, pointing to a quieter hurricane season. But less active doesn't mean no risk. Just one storm can define the year for your community. Preparation is essential every season. Looking ahead, a developing La Niña and a potentially weak polar vortex could bring a classic split winter: cold and snowy up north, warm and dry in the south. Extreme cold snaps are possible if the polar vortex weakens. Our global climate is interconnected. A cool patch of water can shape weather thousands of miles away. Stay weather aware and check for daily updates. Make sure you have emergency plans and alerts in place. Whether it's a hurricane or a snowstorm, being prepared keeps you safe. And that's the latest on the weather, for now.